ever since I was young, I've actually, as far back as I can remember, I've always had this intense curiosity to know God and to understand God. And from what I've seen in my parents and from what I've seen from many people in the older generations, they tend to go their lives kind of concerned with their own affairs and with their jobs and with their own lives, and it isn't until they approach death that they really start to ponder these questions. And ever since I was very, very young, these have been on the forefront of my mind. And I actually grew up in a Catholic family, and so that was my first introduction to God, what God was. And as a young child, I actually wanted to be a priest. And as I got older, I started to realize, okay, maybe Catholicism isn't exactly what is necessarily the truth, or whatever you may call it, but I still, that intense drive to understand God and that desire to be close to God was always there with me.
How
And
old would you say you'd be?
right now,
And
then, um, gosh, my earliest rememberings of this is probably about 4 or 5 years old. Um, and like I said, that is something that is just carried with me, from that point of earliest remembering, through my years of elementary school, middle school, high school, college, up until now. And
did you feel like you fit in?
no, no, not at all.
Did
I
you try to fit in?
I did, and it failed miserably. I was always terrible about fitting in. I was actually, throughout all of my schooling, from elementary school to college, I was always insanely quiet because my own inner world and my thoughts were so drastically different from those around me. And I would continuously be asked, do you know how to speak? Do you speak English? By my classmates, because I didn't understand why I was so different, and I didn't understand how to communicate to them on the level that they were operating on. Um, so it was very confusing for me. I went through a lot of depression. Um,
Did they try to put you on medication?
they did not try to put me on medication. That was something that well, actually, yeah, when I went to see a therapist, they did, but I instantly was just like, no, no. So they kind of were like, okay, this kid's definitely not taking medication. But yeah, I went through many years of depression. Well, a lot of my life, especially through middle school and high school and college, suicide was always something that was very imminent and on the forefront of my mind, because I lacked such an understanding of why I was so different, and I felt so isolated from those around me, and I did not understand why the world around me was so harsh, and the way people spoke to each other, the way people interacted with each other, it felt so harsh, and I did not understand why it was so unbearably harsh. And I thought there was something wrong with me, that I was so sensitive to the way people were interacting with each other, and to TV and the violence and just typical colloquial language, the way people interact with each other. It was very uncomfortable for me.